for those who will watch this later, welcome to Let's Talk Wellness, where we bring people from different domains to talk about people, practices, and places that make wellness meaningful. Today we have Mihirini. Mihirini brings 25 years of leadership, coaching experience, working with leaders across local and global platforms to help them become stronger thinkers and more effective leaders. I had the chance to collaborate with her on a workshop structure, and that's when I discovered her holistic approach to leadership, one that really resonates with our wellness entrepreneur community. Over the past few months, we've been having these incredible conversations about entrepreneurship, leadership, and all the human challenges we face while navigating our professional and personal lives. Today's conversation brings together her insights on handling emotions and building resilience as wellness practitioners. So I really hope to have a very nice conversation about all these things. Mirini, welcome to Let's Talk Wellness.
Thank you very much, Jude. As you said, we've been having quite a few conversations along the way, and I have really enjoyed getting to know you and seeing where your work and mine intersect, as well as the commonalities in the way we approach things. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Same. So I think one of the things we were talking about was the balance that we all strive to have as wellness practitioners, wellness entrepreneurs. And you brought up this concept of a wounded healer. Let's talk a little bit about that. What is a wounded healer, and why it is such an important concept for those of us who hold space in wellness and in leadership?
So the idea of the wounded healer inspired my PhD thesis, and that's where I've explored it quite a lot. So maybe I'll start by sharing how I was informed and how it has now become part of my practice as a coach. So first of all, I mean, when you think of the wounded healer, we have from Greek mythology, Chiron, who was a centaur, half man, half horse, who was suffering from a incurable wound, but mythologically became known as one of the greatest healers and teachers. So so it's drawing from a long time, something about somebody who has wounds of their own but is also in the service of others. So the archetype comes from there. And then I came across this book called The Wounded Researcher, where the author, somebody called Robert Romanchin, who talks about that as researchers, that we have to be aware of where we come from, what is compelling us to do this research, and that often our research is coming from places of our own complexes, our complexities. And the idea is that if you're not aware of from where or what's prompting us to do this research, we won't be aware of our biases. We won't know how the research is being shaped by a particular perspective, particular experience that we've been through. And then really the idea of the wounded healer, the word itself came from a book by a Christian minister called Henry Nguyen, and his book is called Wounded Healers. And he looked at how inner reflection, that inner healing, the self-acceptance of who you are is a big part of the self-discovery and self-awareness of a practitioner. So he's talking about pastoral practices, and that's how we really kind of are able, so that when we are aware of our own, to get in touch with our own vulnerabilities, the human frailties, and that when we know that, we know others, and that it's in that we bring it into the service of others. So that's how I think of people like us in helping professions. We don't come all sorted. We have things that are going on for us. And I think the key here is self-awareness and attending to oneself. So that if we are not, so the self the self-unaware practitioner could be harmful to themselves and others. And so it's that we're saying. We're not saying all us as practitioners, we have all the answers. We are just saying, do we know what's going on for us, and how is that stopping me or helping me to be in service of others? How is the energy I bring to this space today of use, and is it harmful for me? Is it in the is it in the service of my clients, my patients, my community? So I think that's the idea of the wounded healer concept and practice.
Beautiful. I love that it is a self-inquiry, and I think it's a very common thing. Whoever our audience is, as wellness practitioners, they tend to gravitate towards the healer or the practitioner because of the story. What is your
Yes.
story that makes you you? What is
Yeah.
your story that brings depth to your offering? And I think we talked about this as well, finding a balance between showing your vulnerability, because as Brené Brown says, vulnerability is strength. But how do we find this balance between vulnerability and oversharing with your audience?
Yeah, so I love Brené Brown's work, and so one of the ways I kind of frame vulnerabilities as conscious vulnerability. So as the wounded healer practice, we develop a self-awareness of what's going on for us, and that becomes an ongoing inquiry. As long as we're breathing, there's something always going on for us, good or bad. That's how life is. But if we are aware of what's going on for us, then that's the first step. So the conscious vulnerability is this thing of, if that obviously vulnerability, when I share a story with you, and stories are so powerful, and as practitioners we use stories to connect with others, and we know how it's been also commercialized in advertising, because stories immediately, if it resonates for you, you will buy that product or that service. And I think in this kind of work where we are dealing with, especially for me as a coach, it's the conversation, it's my presence that is the relationship, is the service that I'm giving. And so if I'm not aware of, as human beings, we are constantly leaking of ourselves. Even if I try to wear a facade, don't show what's going on for me, I think in the way we speak, in how we behave, on how we respond, it will eventually show. So the work for me has been a lot about understanding, okay, what's going on for me? Am I safe to share this? And where am I safe? With whom am I safe? Because when something's red hot, maybe you want to sometimes keep it yourself, or maybe you only share it with those people who you know will hold space for you. So the conscious vulnerability is not about all the time sharing, but choosing with who do I share so that I am looked after and I'm also in a healing process. And how. So the how part, I think, is in the work we do. So for example, I've had my own challenges, tragedies that I have gone through, hard times in my life. And sometimes I can't help but share, but I look at in what platform am I sharing? Where am I sharing? And then I also think about that we also can share when it's composted a little bit. So the idea of composting is that when things is no longer separate and so sharp and so hard to hold, that when it's composted, I'm able to see what the lesson is. I'm able to bring it into my presence without it affecting me, and in a way that it's of use. So for me, conscious vulnerability is two things as a practitioner. One is looking after myself when something's actually going on. Second is, how is this of use? Is every story, every event in my life, does it need to be shared? Why am I sharing it? With whom am I sharing? And so what? For what? So I think that's another part of, something that I think about in the practice.
I like that, the presence to build a relationship. I think that's key, from what I heard, and what sets a wellness entrepreneur or a wellness practitioner apart from other people is that you do need to bring in a certain level of vulnerability into the table. So this is, it's easier said than done, right? To really draw these boundaries. So I think this is where the concept of emotional agility comes into play. What is that, in your opinion? How can we be agile in the face of conflicts, in the face of taking on too much when we are already empty as space holders? Because in my experience, that's what leads a lot of wellness practitioners to burn out, or to even get overwhelmed and dilute the offering, make it less personal. What Let's talk about emotional agility and maybe a few ways how we can be emotionally agile.
Yeah, so I think the first thing for me is that we accept that we are human, and that as all humans, we have emotions. And so we have, let's look at, like, if I understand what emotions are, that I feel is one of the first steps. So if I understand, so we know that we have base emotions like avoidant emotions and reward emotions. So our avoidant emotions could be things like anger. Fear is at the very bottom. I think fear is a primary emotion, because it drives, that's where our survival instinct comes from. And on top of that, we have anger, we have disgust. Shame is also, some psychologists consider shame, which is especially particular to humans. But I also think dogs, because I see all these dog videos of, who have all this shame and guilt. So I don't know. So that's an interesting thing. Have they become, by being, domesticated, is there some transference? I am not sure. But anyway, I'll stick to human beings. I understand human beings better. So there's these base emotions. Then we have on the other side love, joy, surprise, and excitement. Those are things that we are all in some way wired. Most of us, unless there's something that's some wiring that's a little bit different, most of us are wired for that. So if I understand those emotions, and if I understand how they show up in my emotional body, and to know the nuances. So bitterness, feeling bitter about something, and feeling irritated by something are different things. They may come from anger, for example, but bitterness may be, I didn't get, well, let's say, I didn't get what I wanted. I should have got it. Why did that person have it? It can be various things. I'm bitter that this happened to me. Irritated could be, I'm just irritated by by what you're doing. I don't like it when I'm trying to think of examples of, I can't remember, I can't imagine being irritated with you, Jude. Maybe we don't know each other well enough. I'm sure, people who, especially, people who are close to us, we know how we get irritated. So there are very subtle differences. So this again goes back to what I talked about, the wounded healer. So in order to know emotional agility, we have to know what's going on for us, and to be able to hold that and say, I feel bitter, rather than I am bitter. So I am bitter I am a bitter person, but if I say I feel bitter, I am leaving room for other emotions also to be there. I am more than this bitterness that I'm feeling. I am more than this irritation I'm feeling. I feel scared. I am more than this fear that I have. So that kind of self-awareness is, I think, the first, for me, has been the big part of the practice. And I'm sure this community will know a lot about what I'm about to say, is if I'm stuck in an emotion, if I don't know what I'm stuck in, I will continue to be stuck in it. But when I know it, I can make choices. And it's in the pause, it's in the breath that we can make the choice. So, Jude, you do a lot of breath work, and I think this is something that is familiar to you. When we are able to pause, and I think of it as online pausing and offline pausing. So the online pausing is, let's say you say something to me and I get irritated. If I have the presence of mind to say, okay, Jude said this, and instead of saying he irritated me, if I'm able to say I was irritated by what he said, and what's going on? What made me so irritated? So that's that inquiry in the moment. Or I am too irritated to have the pause, and then I later on in maybe in the evening, that developing that practice. So how did today go? Oh, I did get irritated with Jude. I wonder what happened there. And that's that reflection. So it's that kind of the awareness, knowing the nuances, and the practice. And that's where I think, you and I talked about this narrative reframing. If I think of this example, this happened to one of my clients, so a few months back, so I can bring this up, is this client wrote a report, somebody in a group email, another person responded and said, oh, your information here is wrong, that's not how it is. And immediately he got annoyed because there was he sent a rather cutting remark back saying, you don't know the basis of which I've drawn this information, this is how I've done it. And he sent it back. Then of course he was stewing in this, the email he got and the email he sent. So now two things have happened. And we kind of explored, so what was going on? And I think one thing he realized was that it was sent to a wider community and his knowledge was questioned. And then also there was a bit of history with this person who sent. So nothing is really that straightforward, So my question was like, if somebody else in that email list sent this to you, how would you have responded? Yeah, maybe not so much. So, so these are all these nuanced things. So one of the things was to, in those moments, I invite a lot of questions in that pause and the reflection. So it might be asking, what's actually going on for me? What is my pattern of responding to criticism? What do I value? So if I'm motivated by being seen as knowledgeable, and that when I'm criticized, then I feel attacked. And, so the other questions are, in the larger scheme of things, how is this email, how will it matter in a week's time, a month's time, in a year's time? So kind of looking at, trying to develop, and what's the meaning I'm making out of it? If I think, like, let's say you sent me that email, if I have a story in my head that you sent it to discredit me, to disrespect me, then but if I just thought, oh, Jude saw a mistake, didn't understand where it came from, and pointed it out, how if I responded from that place? So it's kind of playing with that. These are events, but events become good, bad, ugly based on the meanings we give to it. So if I notice, so that's kind of how I think of that emotional agility, the resilience that we build for the practice.
Okay. So is emotional agility in that sense, maybe I'm going to connect this to leadership also. Is leadership in that sense being able to see things objectively, having that space? I think having worked with a lot of leaders, having worked in across corporations and individuals, I know this is hard to generalize, but if you can generalize, what is leadership and what is the main challenge that keeps leaders from seeing things objectively? Why do we take it so personally, and why is it such a hard thing for us to step out of it?
Because leaders are human, Jude. So that's the first one. So all of us. So that's. I mean, and I think maybe I contest that idea of objectivity because I. That's why I say if you're self-aware, instead of being objective, you might be able to help others understand where you're coming from. So nothing's ever black and white, is it? Or at least that's how I see, like, that we can't, like, I can strip away, let's say something happens as a leader, I'm in a, have to make some really tough choices, and it'll affect my profits. For example, if let's say we have to lay off people, and if I don't, this company will, go under. And my choice, I think my choice, or the choices I've been given, is lay off people. You can say it objectively, if we don't do this, this is what will happen. But the decisions are never that objective because we're human beings making decisions that affect other human beings. So what gets in the way is, and I think this also comes to that conscious vulnerability. If I'm aware of what's going on for me and I'm able to share, even in the toughest times, I think, like, if you look at global stage, and there have been, lots of things that have been said afterwards, the New Zealand Prime Minister, how she dealt with and shared her own fears. She didn't say, "Oh my God, I don't know what to do," because you don't. When a nation is in crisis or an organization is in crisis, you don't want somebody says, "Well, I also don't know what to do," and flap your arms. But if you say, "I don't know what to do, but here's what I'm doing to get to know what the next steps are. This is what I'm doing to try and understand. This is where I need your help. I don't have all the answers." So if I'm able to, that's the courage you have to be able to say, this is what's also going on for me, but then you also have to have the presence of mind to say, what will I do next? And I want to link it back from leadership also to the wellness practitioner, that if for some reason you're not in a position to say or to be there for others because something's going on for you, then that's also courageous decisions to say, okay, right now I need to first look after myself. Otherwise, I could be, because I'm not in the space to be of service. It's going to affect my energy. It's going to affect how I work. So I think that's where that emotional agility, resilience, till I feel okay, I might not be of use. And imagine if leaders also said that, or said, take the baton for a little while because I'm very tired. I don't know if not many leaders will do that. But some leaders do have an idea and say, okay, this is not for me at this moment. I think so that they know if it's not working for them, they might need to take a pause or leave or give it to someone else for that moment.
Okay, beautifully put. I think leaders, I see our community as leaders. Leadership to me is very much about holding space for others to also become their full selves,
Yeah.
help them become who they truly are. And that is, to me, is the problem where you feel like that's a long journey.
Yeah.
Sometimes it could feel like you're stuck.
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? I think the conversation was also named aptly "Stuck to Resilience." So what? Let's talk about being stuck. Why do we get stuck, and how can we practice resilience, or what stays in the middle of it? Maybe a couple of practical things that we can do. I know you are an arsenal of tools. So maybe a couple of tools that you can share with us.
Okay, so when you said about being stuck, I was thinking of a conversation. It's for me, there's something about reframing our stuck places. That if I keep, so I had a client who I was talking to, and she said, oh, I feel like I'm at this moment not engaged. I don't want to, she's been through, there's been some big changes in her life, and she was all fully ready to take on the world. And then she found herself kind of retreating a bit into herself. She was like, oh God, I'm like watching movies that have no meaning. And, I feel like I'm stuck. I feel like I'm stodgy, like I'm not moving. And there is a lot going on. So sometimes we have to ask what's going on for us that might require us to kind of retreat. So I'm taking this example. And we kind of looked at the idea that what is the difference between honoring what she needs right now and feeling like it's now being indulgent. And the indulgent is the stuck part. Oh, I can't get out of this. I just don't want to go out, meet people. I'm not reading the books that I should be. There have a lot of shoulds and oughts and musts in her vocabulary. So I think we have to start looking at, when we say we're stuck, if you're saying the same thing to you over and over again and nothing has shifted, then that's the stuckness. But if you are pausing or something's not moving because you're not ready for it and you need time, then maybe that's not stuck. You could be incubating, you could be reimagining, you might be healing. There are other things that are happening. And that's when I think I invite people to reframe what stuck feels for them. And then you ask the question, what does this look like? Like, if you are not stuck, what does it look like? So, because I come from that narrative therapy space, we only hear the dominant story. Oh, I'm not doing. And then suddenly you find, no, you are doing small things that are not stuck, but you're not seeing it because you're in your head, I'm stuck. So then we talk about it is as the alternative narrative. What's the other thing that's happening that you're not paying attention to? We listen to the dominant narrative. So, like, I always take this example because this is my dominant narrative. I find it hard to give up sugar. I'm stuck in that loop. But there are days that I see something nice and I think, oh, that's really not going to make me feel good after I eat it, and I leave it. But because I'm constantly stuck in that I can't resist sweet, I feed that habit as well. That's what I'm telling myself. So it can be stuck in a habit, stuck in a bad relationship, stuck in a way of thinking, a way of being. So the invitation is to try. So mine is try small actions, small experiments. So that comes from, I think I've discussed with you, but from action inquiry is maybe you ask yourself, you ask one small question. What would make me feel not so stuck? And how would I do that one thing that makes me feel not stuck? Let's say I'm somebody who feels that I've been stuck in the house and don't want to meet people. Maybe I talk to somebody to the cashier at the supermarket. That's my tiny experiment. I'm taking little examples. So, and then you say, so maybe your offline reflection, like I said, the pause and that reflection is a question. How do I do something that helps me move? I walk 10 minutes. Let's say it's trying to bring a habit of exercises. Okay, I walk 10 times around my dining table. And that's a tiny, small example because I'm now building the habit that I also have another narrative. I can walk 10 times around the dining table. And if I don't do it, I ask, oh, what's stopping me? So we keep inquiring into that. So I love questions. that I ask myself. So for me, one of my practices, I think, is to go into that space of asking, because it's a lifelong practice. This we'll feel stuck at different times and different times of the day, even, to say, okay, how do I move? What is the question that will help me take one action tomorrow? And reflect, learn, come back, ask the question again.
Okay, so reframing narratives. Correct me if I'm wrong. What you're saying is like reframing narratives is the foundation to really understand the gap between stuck and resilience. That is one tool, or is that what you're saying, or is...
Yeah, no, I am saying that we have particular ways of seeing ourselves and our lives, our identity. Oh, I'm like this. So if we see the pattern of how we are constantly telling ourselves things, and if we were to use more generative ways, more like, is this serving me? This way of seeing myself or this way of being, how is it serving me? So sometimes the things that we become used to, especially habits or ways of being, were coping mechanisms when we were little, when we were growing up, and they served you maybe at that time. But maybe you're not 25 or 35 or 50. Certainly the coping mechanisms that served me when I was 20 might not serve me now that I'm over 50. So I have to ask myself, is this serving me? So that's also the other thing. What's the big picture? What do I want in the larger scheme of things? What is it that I want? And hence the reframing and the experimentation with little actions.
Okay, I like that. Experimenting and constantly iterating, I guess. That's
Yes, exactly. That's it. So it's
right.
in my language, it's called action inquiry cycle. It's an inquiry cycle.
Right.
It doesn't end till till you're no longer here. For me.
A question for you, as someone who works with a lot of people who are either stuck or trying to grow.
Mm.
Do you feel like we are more stuck as societies, or
Oh.
are we coming out of it? I know it was a curveball, but
No,
I do.
no, it's not a curveball, because it's a really. Do I feel we are more stuck as a society? No, I don't also think so, because unlike I think algorithms keep us stuck. Let's say, for example, we start seeing the world from a particular. I'm thinking 50 years ago, we didn't have as much information about what was going on in the world as we do now. So we had to kind of figure things out on our own, and maybe we had a very limited and narrow perspective because we didn't know how other people experience the same event in another part of the world, in the next village. We only knew what was going on for us. Now we have so much exposure. I mean, the thing that happens is that we start getting the same thing that we have a bias for. That's one of the problems, unless you are curious enough. So those who are curious enough to have good conversations like we're having now, hopefully, and to learn, to read other perspectives, then we won't stay stuck. Stuck is when I don't see anything else and I have only one narrative of how the world is. But I think we have more opportunity to not be stuck, because we are, you and I are learning. We wouldn't have met if not for, these different opportunities. In another time, I would have never known the work you're doing. I would have only known what I think, and hopefully we're learning together. So I think we're not as stuck. I hope not.
I like that. It's a nice optimistic way to look at it. Society.
Hope. I like to Joanna Macy, who passed away a month ago. She had wrote, she was an activist, nuclear, against nuclear arms, and she did this. First, the work she did was called despair work. And then it was called, like, how do we maintain hope in a world that feels despairing? Because she was also a climate change activist. And I'm not saying positive pop psychology, oh, if you think it, it'll be okay. I'm saying actively, how do we cultivate hope? And that's a frame as well, right? That I'm not saying everything is okay. I'm saying, what can I do today? What choices? And that's the emotional agility. What's the choice I can do? What choice is available to me? What choices do I open up? What opportunities do I open up so that I can create something different tomorrow? That I can feel differently to how I'm feeling today.
Well put. Love it. All right. So, final question. This is for our audience who are wellness entrepreneurs, feeling the weight of building themselves. Often, this is a very uncertain journey. Not that life is not certain or uncertain. Wellness entrepreneurs in general tend to lead this life of uncertainty. If you can give one piece of advice, what would it be to this community?
I think the whole thing about, uncertainties I find can come in different ways. A lot of us who are in this space are self-employed. We have to create our own work. We have to find our own energy. We have to find our own clients. It's not like, I'm not saying wellness practitioners don't have organizations to join. They do. But a lot of us, because the wellness space has boomed in the last, say, 5 to 10 years, so there are a lot of entrepreneurs. So uncertainty is a very big part of it. I think kind of building community, what you're doing here, Jude, is key. We have to draw strength from each other. We have to learn from each other. So we can't stop uncertainty. All we can do is also to know the choices we're making. Why am I here? What are the choices I'm making? The value base, like, sometimes people make financial choices. They make relationship choices in order to do the work that they're doing. And so you have to know that these are choices you're making, and to be mindful when you're making them, what's fueling them, inquire into those choices. You don't have to be stuck to those choices. And the uncertainty is that if you have community around you, if you build a strong foundation of knowing why you're doing what you're doing, maybe you navigate this a little bit better. But uncertainty is a big part of the work we do. For me, like, I'm thinking, oh, AI coaching, right? Now how do I be relevant in a world that, the work I thought, just by having conversations, so things are changing for all of us. So how to be relevant, how to be open, to be curious, is, I think, is one of the big things when you're navigating uncertainty.
All right. I love that. So, on the topic of curiosity, anyone who's watching, I'm actually only seeing the audience now. I was engaged in the conversation. If you have any questions, feel free to ask away. And if anyone who's watching is curious about what Mihirini does, maybe you can share a little bit about your practice and how they can reach you.
Yeah. So my main practice is as a leadership coach. So I work one-to-one with senior leadership. I also do group coaching, which is where I work with generally senior leadership or people who've been identified for senior leadership teams. And I also do team coaching. So that's on the coaching part. And on the training, some of these things we talked about, like emotional agility, I do master classes and different sessions around those areas too, in the corporate sector. So that's a little bit about my work.
All right.
Thanks for asking the question, Jude.
Yeah, no worries. So I know you're being humble about it, but if anyone wants to find her work, we
LinkedIn
will
is a good place.
LinkedIn, yes, and we will
Yes.
also tag your socials if
Yes.
you
On
want to get some help or even work with her. From my personal experience, I can tell you that she's a lovely person to work with. So collaborate, like you said. It's all about the community and being curious and learning from each other. Mirini, thank you so much for joining Let's Talk Wellness. I really appreciate you coming in, and yeah, it's a short chat, but I hope we talked something of substance, right? Um, Final question. So I ask this from everyone. If you can, if you can describe wellness, what is wellness to you in 3 words or a couple of sentences? How would that look like?
um, is at peace, feeling of peace, and um, but also peace in my body. That I feel aligned uh, in my body, and that what I'm doing feels meaningful, and yeah, I don't feel burnt out and feel without energy, or so, and mostly about feeling hopeful, that's feeling joy, and being able to have for me, wellness also means having the space to feel all of my emotions and be okay with it. That also is a big part of wellness.
I love that last bit. I'm gonna keep that in mind. Having the space to feel all your emotions. What a lovely way to put it.
Thank you, Jude. I hope this conversation was what you hoped for, and I hope your community also gets something out of it. It's, as always, really lovely to chat to you, Jude. Thank you.
Likewise, thank you again for joining. I don't see any questions, but I'm sure they will come once we put out the recording out. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Mihirini, and we'll be in touch.
Okay. See you,
Bye.
Jude. Take
Thanks
care.
everyone for who joined. Oh, yeah, yeah, we had an audience. I didn't realize that. Again, these people know that I'm new to technology, so
Okay.
all
Are
right.
we
Bye.
still being recorded, or recording is off?
We're still being recorded.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, we'll get off now.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. See you, Jude. Thank you. Okay.